Last yet not least for this opening segment, we will hear from Mr. Mohan Kumar Sammathuria, Chairperson of the EANET Scientific Advisory Committee for 2021 through 2023. He'll be sharing about the release of the publication summary of the 20th anniversary of the EANET. And additionally, Mr. Mohan is the Principal Assistant Director of the Atmospheric Sciences and Cloud Seeding Division of the Malaysian Meteorological Department of the Ministry of Environment and Water of Malaysia. Over to you, Mr. Mohan.
Thank you, Courtney. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, it gives me great pleasure in actually releasing the summary of the 20th anniversary of EANET. But prior to going, I would just like to say a great congratulations to the Network Center of EANET in actually making this effort and coming through with regard to this fantastic document. Okay, next slide, please. So the purpose of the summary itself is to evaluate the data accumulated over the last 20 years, obtain a summary that makes it easier to be understood by policymakers, the general public, and the various related organizations, and thereafter consider and design the future with regard to EANET activities. Next slide, please. Now, the concept of the summary itself is fourfold. Firstly, what has been happening in the last 20 years, the challenges that EANET has faced, how EANET is dealing and has dealt with these challenges, and the way forward for EANET. Next slide, please. So the structure of the summary itself can be broken into four. First, in the past, the present, the challenges that is faced, and the way forward. The past actually looks at the reason for establishing of EANET itself and the type of activities carried out. The present looks at the current state of affairs with acid deposition, the importance of acid deposition as an environmental problem. The challenges is to actually understand the co-benefits, especially with regard to acid deposition and air pollution relating pollutants. And finally, the activities with EANET into the future. Next slide, please. So let's look into the various contents of the summary itself. Next slide. So this is a beautiful cover page has been designed by the Network Center here and demonstrating the map, the flag for all the 13 participating countries. A fantastic job, actually. Next slide, please. So the first content here will be the reason for establishment of EANET itself and the type of activities that EANET has been implementing. Next slide. So what are the reasons here? So firstly, the EANET was formed as a response to acid deposition related concern in the East Asian region. And they've given this concern, it was established in 2001. And as of such, various activities has been implemented, such as monitoring and reporting of acid deposition and air pollutant related particulate matter and gases, data acquisition, capacity building related with all those monitoring activities and research activities and policy related activities, research itself, as mentioned previously, and public awareness with regard to acid deposition and air pollution. Next, please. So the second content will be actually the objectives of the EANET itself, which is threefold. So the objective first is actually the first thing will be to create a common understanding of the acid deposition status in East Asia. Next will be to provision of useful inputs for decision making at local, regional, and national levels. And finally, putting this together, these will contribute towards cooperation on these issues among the respective participant countries. Now, to actually achieve these objectives, four main activities were actually conducted by the EANET. Firstly was actually the monitoring activities. Second was compilation, evaluation of the data, storage, and very importantly, analysis of data. And not only that, the data quality of this data needs to be of high concentration as to enable an international agreement to the data and the resulting research obtained thereafter. And finally, the EANET, using this data, EANET has been conducting related activities such as research and public awareness campaigns. Okay, next, please. So the third content here is how has EANET helped to actually solve air pollution problems in the region, the East Asian region. Next, please. So what we see on the right-hand side here, actually, one, you have a map, and two, you have two graphs. The graphs on the upper right, they actually represent the progression in the increase in number of wet deposition sites across the last 20 years. The graph on the lower right side, that represents the increment in dry monitoring sites for each of the respective dry measurements that we made. So when you look at it, actually to solve acid deposition and related air pollution problems, it was essential to understand the current status and trends of acid deposition and related air pollution in the region. So it was necessary for EANET to provide a comprehensive monitoring data, and thereby has been continuously developing this monitoring network over the last 20 years. And finally, all this is actually with regard to policymakers with periodically produced regional assessments. Next, please. So next is what's the current state of affairs. Next, please. So the current state of affairs here actually, it's captured very nicely in this graph on the right hand side here. So it is actually a summary of the output for wet deposition monitoring, and there's a clear demarcation between the Northeast Asian region and regard to the Southeast Asian region. So what has been seen is that there's a decrease in the annual amount of acid deposition, especially related to sulfuric acid deposition with regard to Northeast Asia. Nevertheless, when compared globally, it is still comparatively higher than that's being reported in the European and the North American continent. Now, these may be partially due to volcanic activity in the Asian region and the naturally higher precipitation in East Asia. Next, please. So, fourth content here is the importance of acid deposition as an environmental problem itself. Next, please. Now, acid deposition is not only a problem of acidification, but it's actually various related pollutants, inclusive of nitrogen compounds, which are actually deposited together with the acidic substances. Now, as we all know, excessive nitrogen deposition can further influence health and the resilience of ecosystems. Further, surface ozone and particulate matter generated in connection with these acidic pollutants can also cause adverse effects on ecosystems, inclusive of crops. Therefore, it becomes important to monitor and control the various acid deposition related air pollutants. Now, the effort of participating countries over the last 20 years have helped to tackle the acid deposition problem in this region. And therefore, very importantly, the experiences and best practices that has been amalgamated over the last 20 years can definitely contribute towards controlling and managing of other related air pollutants which come up over time. Next, please. Okay, the fifth context will be to understand the importance of co-benefits here towards a clean environment and sustainable development. Next, please. So here now, evidence from research suggests that climate change and atmospheric issues are likely to be solved simultaneously if coordinated measures and actions from governments, enterprises, and the public are taken with consideration of co-benefits during the design and implementation of these related strategies. Now, these design and implementation of related strategies should be involved in the various anthropogenic activities and our general anthropogenic activities undertaken by humankind, which includes transport, buildings itself, the industries, our very way of life. Next, please. Now, the sixth context here will be the serious problems, identification of serious problems due to air pollution, and thereafter the need to assess it in East Asia. Next, please. So what are these serious problems actually? Now, the impacts of air pollution on public health and ecosystems is definitely a concern still with East Asia, and therefore research on human health and the impacts of particulates and pollutants on human health and tree species have been developed in East Asia for some time. Now, recent studies do suggest that it is actually a complex phenomenon, which means here now that whether acid deposition Okay, acid deposition as related to air pollution now is not a trivial thing. The reason because it is due to multiple air pollutants, and thereby addressing this complexity becomes necessary. Now, the importance of this is because we need to consider the adverse effects caused by this due to this complex multiple air pollutant related problem. And if we do it, it will definitely lead to applicable measures to further improve the air quality. Final, next please. The last context here will be actually how does all this now feed into the EANET activities with regard to the future. Next, please. So now when we look at it, so first of all, we will need EANET activities have to be operated in such a way that it really addresses the impacts. That means research with regard to actually clarifying the impacts of air pollution on public health and ecosystems. Okay, and thereafter on ways to actually reduce, okay, to actually reduce these various concentrations in the atmosphere, which means actually now how does EANET actually contend, okay, with the various challenges towards implementation of clean air strategies in the region, which, and if this is done, if this can be accomplished, then I believe this will definitely lead to applicable measures to further improve the air quality. Next, please. So finally, okay, this is the last page of the summary itself, where it has all the necessary contact details with regard to the to EANET itself. And with this, I'll thank you. With this, I think I've come to the complete my presentation. And let me again say congratulations to the Network Center of the EANET itself in finally coming up with such a fantastic document. Thank you very much.